Breaking news. Europe ought to present Trump with an irresistible deal regarding the Ukraine. In light of the current statistical tie between the former president and Joe Biden, European leaders are beginning to accept the reality that Donald Trump has a real shot at becoming president again. They are worried that Biden could slash U.S. aid to Ukraine if re-elected. Now that another Trump presidency is a distinct possibility, Europeans are busy getting ready for it right now. The notion that the Republican firebrand might reduce American backing for Ukraine is Europe's greatest concern. A number of Americans have voiced concerns that sending limited ammunition to Kyiv might jeopardize Israel's military operations since the October 7 Hamas massacre, and Republicans in Congress have already blocked $24 billion in additional aid for Ukraine. You might be able to buy his silence. Meanwhile, European leaders aren't naive. They know that, at least for the time being, Europe can't match the US in terms of military hardware, intelligence, and diplomatic support for Kyiv, but money is something Europe does have, and that might be the deciding factor in getting Republicans to support Ukraine on occasion. Trump's candor is shocking. This past spring, the ex-president gave an interview in which he threatened to end the Russian invasion of Ukraine within the next day, but he dodged the question of whether he wanted Moscow or Kyiv to emerge victorious. His actual response was, "Do you know what I'm going to say? Okay, listen up. I would prefer it if Europe contributed more funds. In their eyes, we're all horrible people. We're shelling out $170 billion for remote land, while they're in for 20 minutes away. I really doubt it. To be fair, Trump's primary calculation in the Ukraine issue is financial, but his criticism of forever wars does help him win over voters in the United States. I don't have to believe in feng shui, I do it because it makes me money," once said the man who furnished his hotels according to the harmonious design practice. Trump also has little regard for Europe's security order, which is similar to his feelings toward feng shui principles. On the other hand, if it appears lucrative, he might be tempted to do it, after being convinced by his staff that exporting weapons would be profitable for American industry and that Kyiv would pay. President Trump changed his mind about sending weapons to Ukraine. His reasoning for supporting the Nord Stream 2 pipeline for natural gas was identical. The majority of American leaders were against the pipeline because it would jeopardize Ukraine's security, but Trump's main reason for being against it was to get Europe to buy American LNG instead of funding Russia. Therefore, Europe should announce a multi-year purchase of US-made arms for Kyiv and use this focus on money to guarantee aid for Ukraine. Ukraine, Europe, and the transactional economies would all benefit from this. Trump realizes that his own interests are also involved. Paying for the United States' support for Ukraine would cost Europe about €45 billion annually. That's about equal to the gap between NATO's 2% goal and Germany's actual defense spending over the past 2 years, or 0.3% of EU GDP. Republican support for Ukraine would be firmly tied to a package of long-term weapons purchases. Contracts supported by European funding that are important to American industry are unlikely to be cancelled by either Trump or lawmakers who are skeptical of Ukraine. A multi-year guarantee on the arms that Ukraine needs would be provided at the same time. Although it may appear crude, transatlantic checkbook diplomacy is actually quite old. For instance, Germany chose to donate 17 billion Deutsche Marks instead of sending soldiers to join the coalition that drove Iraq out of Kuwait during the 1991 Gulf War. Furthermore, Brussels will inevitably shift its focus to financial matters regardless of Trump's November victory. For several important reasons, it would be wise to do it beforehand.